What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Thank you so much for being here. I have to admit, I tried so hard to script this. I really did. I wanted to have a perfect intro, and I wanted to sound all professional and look all perfect, but I end up sounding like a robot. So you get me unplugged. Tonight, we have my friend here. He is a master on the dodgeball court. You don't want to be on the opposite side of this guy. He has an incredible story to tell. I would like to introduce to you my friend, Eddie. What's up, Eddie?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic.
So we were talking the other day, and I've known you for a while, and I've seen you around the recovery community, and I know we have some mutual friends, but I never had a chance to hear any of your story. And I must say, some of the things you told me the other day, they really spoke to me, and they really speak to what's going on in the world right now with the overdose crisis and things like that. So I'm really glad to have you here, man. Are you ready?
Absolutely am. I'm really happy to be here. Spread the word.
Awesome.
Right?
Awesome. Okay, well, the floor is kind of yours. Why don't you tell us what it was like growing up?
Growing up, I started, using drugs at kind of a young age. I was 13 or 12 around there when I started smoking marijuana, and that kind of grew for me, obviously, at a later point in my life. But I grew up with, a brother, two sisters, and my family wasn't split up or anything. But I lost my sister to a suicide at the age of 15, and
Wow.
that kind of it really weighed heavy on me for a lot of years after that.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Was there substance use in the home growing up?
A little bit, yeah, there was.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, how did you get started? What was it that just you decided, oh, this sounds like a good idea. Let's try it out.
So, like I said, I started smoking marijuana at a young age, and just kind of did it more socially than anything. It was, you were with friends, you smoked some weed, and that was kind of how it was for me growing up. And then at about the age of 17, I had got a pretty good job, and I was with some friends, and it was my very first paycheck, and they had some drugs, and I partook, and I was in love from the first time I used it, and it helped me feel not like I did, and it filled that void that I had in my stomach. It really helped me cope with what I was going through, and I just fell in love with it from the first time with all those friends, and it gave me a group of friends at the same time, and that's where it started for me.
So when you were young, were you like, I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to get into that bottle. I can't wait to smoke that weed. Or was it something that was just introduced to you one day and you said, oh, I'll try it?
No, I was exposed to a lot of drugs at a very young age. I saw a lot of things, probably at the age I was, shouldn't have. I started smoking weed really early on, and that just exposed me further to hanging out with people that had other drugs, and I saw a lot of it growing up. And up until that point, I was, saying no to a lot of hard drugs, and I felt that night, I felt like it was time to try something new, and it was never the same after that.
Mm-hmm. So was this like a weekend thing at the beginning?
So it started out, it was just going to be a one-time thing, obviously. I mean, you never really think about it the first time you do it. It's just, oh, this is going to be fun for whatever, one night. And then it became, after that, it was scheduled. It was every weekend. It was Friday night to, Sunday morning. I was getting wasted, and I was able to, hold that down and still maintain going to work all the time and being consistent with a lot of other things in my life. But yeah, it was mostly, it started off as just, it was supposed to be one time, and then it was weekends, and that's kind
So
of where
you
it started
you
for me.
so you carried this into your career then, hey?
Yeah, it kind of began the same time as I started in the field I was in. It was
So because you went to trade school, right?
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I went to
Okay.
SciAS. Yeah,
Okay,
and
cool.
yeah, it was my very first paycheck, and it was a lot more money than I was used to. Right, I was working a minimum wage job before that, and then all of a sudden I got a huge paycheck, and I thought, what better way to spend it? And from there, it was just consistently, it was part of my budget, and it was worked in, and I would, consistently do that. And then, yeah, I went to trade school, and that's where it kind of, my first year of trade school is kind of where I kind of started to go off the rails a little more. I had a
Right.
little more free time, and everyone in school, when you're in school, you're kind of in a party mode more than anything, because you don't have to wake up as early. There's not work to worry about. It's more relaxed.
So you would use with your fellow students then?
Yeah, that's kind of where it became more daily. I would use, instead of just being weekends, I would use during the day. I would go to school high. I would hang out with my friends after school, get high, and it was just far more consistent that way.
So are we talking about marijuana here, or had you graduated into harder things by that point?
No, yeah, I was using hard drugs. I was using pills, opiates. So when I was 17, that's kind of when it started, and I would just use those opiates more so on the weekends than anything else. And yeah, that first round of school, it kind of really began to spiral for me. I started using at school more and more, weekends, evenings, all the time. It kind of became more normalized for me, I guess you'd say.
So how did you justify that to yourself? Like, how did you find it? How did you find like normalcy in that?
Well, I had a couple friends that used, and we had a tight knit circle, and it felt normal in that group for starters. Like that was the norm. A lot of people were doing it, so I felt like it was normal.
Yeah.
As well as like I was beginning to be at a point where it wasn't just the fact that it was normal; it was the fact that it became something I needed to avoid withdrawal symptoms. Right, so
Yeah.
it grows into this monster where you have to feed it or you'll get dope sick.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. So did you notice like how the withdrawal symptoms would impair you like at
Um,
work? Like,
yeah, so after that first round of schooling, it kind of, I got messier and messier with everything I was doing. It was no longer just being a weekend warrior with some friends and partying like, maybe a normal person would. It was consistent. It was every weekend, every evening, all as much as I could. And during the day at work, I would limp through and definitely have withdrawal symptoms throughout the day that I had to cope with until I could get home and use again. And they definitely were impairing me. It wasn't, they're a lot like flu-like symptoms. So it's your stomach hurts, you're just not all there.
right, right. So, but you thought that because you weren't technically using at work, that you were doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, at that point, I felt like I was still, um, I was able to carry on at work. I wouldn't say I was doing exceedingly well. Like I wasn't the best employee in the world. I would take, some days here and there, more sick days. That's where I kind of started taking more and more sick days, and so that I could use on those days, and I wouldn't have to be dope sick as much.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that grows into, using before you go to work or staying up all night and you're using the whole night and you end up at work high.
Right,
And you become a victim of maintaining that addiction.
right. So now when we were talking the other day, you spoke of working in an environment that it was a remote environment where their drugs and alcohol were permitted. Like it was a fly-in environment where you weren't allowed to bring anything on site, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So,
So after that second round of schooling, I was doing even worse. And at this point, I started, I had started using at work, and I had gotten to a point where I wasn't able to, or the insanity had gotten to a point where I didn't feel I was able to function properly unless I was using. And so I ended up moving to this remote location where it was a dry camp, and you weren't supposed to have alcohol or drugs or anything of that nature. You had to pass a urine screening, and I had to,
whoa, you had to pass a urine screen. Now, how did you do that?
So there's a couple ways to do it, but the way I used it, there's a drink you can buy, and you drink it the day you're supposed to take this urine screening, and it's packed full of creatine and different vitamins that mask drugs in your urine.
Huh. And you can just buy that, hey?
Yeah, you can purchase it at a head shop, yeah.
That seems strange that you can just buy something like that over the counter.
Yeah, yes.
Huh.
Yeah, and so through using that to actually get onto the site, that was, how I made it there in the first place. After that, now you've got the problem of bringing drugs on site so you can maintain, because this is a remote camp, so you're 2 weeks on, 1 week off.
Yeah, so tell us, like, how are some of the ways you were able to get that in?
So a lot of the times I would just unscrew my my deodorant bottle, like your armpit deodorant, and I would just put it underneath of the deodorant stick and screw it back on. And that was how I got it in. Security checks they open your bags, they check the whole vehicle, they do up and down thorough search, and but they wouldn't take apart your deodorant, obviously. And so that was really easy for me to sneak it in. And then they did do random inspections in your cab as well, like the unit you're staying in. But I would pull off the vent in the bathroom, and I would put it inside of the vent and close it back up.
And there was never any dogs on site, or because I know personally, like I worked in remote camps myself, and I remember one camp in particular that I went into. They had security swabbing. They would have swab, and they would swab the handles of your luggage and stuff, and look for residue that way. Yeah. You never saw anything like that?
I did, but it was far and few in between. They had drug sniffing dogs come through. They didn't find anything. They would swab randomly, but I never really saw anybody swabbing. So it was just more of a threat tactic than anything.
Yeah. Wow. So did you ever use with your coworkers?
Yeah, but so at the stages I was in, a lot of people knew I used in, my workplace. A lot of people understood that, and I did use with coworkers, but it was more outside of work, as they weren't at the level of addiction I was at. It wasn't nearly the same for them as it was for me. When the party was over for them at midnight, it wasn't over for me until I was, done.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said something funny to me the other day. We were talking about that, and when I asked you, I'm like, "Did you ever use with your coworkers at work?" And what did you said? Something like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't want to share."
Yeah, at the mine site, so it's a little different at the mine. It's almost like everyone there, that's the mentality when you're at the mine, is like you use all the time. That's what you do when you're at the mine, and it's strange because most mines are dry. So for that to be the mentality, it's odd. But yeah, I didn't want to share what I had because I was a severe addict, and I only I brought more than enough for myself for the 2 weeks, but I always ended up not having enough by the end of it because I was severely addicted. So
Yeah. 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 No, I hear that. So then other people knew that on the job site, like did your
yeah.
supervisors, did they sort of turn a blind eye or?
Yeah, they kind of did. Everybody kind of knew what was going on and knew I had a problem, but they didn't want to really address it. It was more so it was my problem, as that was what it was kind of seen as. And it it was, yeah, that's kind of just how it was. I did have one time I accidentally messaged a supervisor of mine asking for drugs because his name was the same as my drug dealer's at the time, and that was pretty big goof up on my part. But
I don't mean to laugh, but I mean it's kind of funny.
It's something that would only happen to an addict. Obviously, I was high and messaging my dealer for more junk, and didn't message my dealer, but messaged my foreman instead at the time.
What did he say?
He actually played it off like I didn't say anything, and never brought it up at work or anything, and that was all. And nothing ever came of it.
Wow. So let's see, what else do we got here? So how long did you keep that up? Like how long were you able to hold down your job and hold down your substance use?
So I was able to, I don't know if I would say hold it down. I was definitely not managing very well. As you can tell by this story, it falls apart really quickly at the seams. It starts to break. But I was able to keep that up for about 3.5 years, and then it started to really fall apart for me. So after a while missing work consistently, it started to fall apart for me. I wasn't able to make it to work every day of the week. I usually had to take 1 or 2 days a week off to be able to maintain my addiction. And I tried to balance between maintaining my addiction without ruining my work life. And I knew that if I showed up to work too often, too high, that I would not be able to continue my career either way. So I figured it was the best strategy to stretch my career as long as I could. But eventually I was laid off from the position I had because obviously I had too many sick days that I had been using on a consistent basis. I mean, you miss 2-3 days a week consistently, you're bound to lose your job eventually.
Yeah. So when you were, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So when you were at that point, when you were, okay, if I miss a couple of days a week, then maybe I'll be able to stretch this out. Like, did you know in your mind that the end was coming, or were you just like thinking that this was going to be how life was from now on?
No, I thought the end was coming a long time ago before that. I thought it was going to be there probably 7 or 8 months prior. Mm-hmm. The mine actually probably stretched how long I stayed there for another 6 months, just because once you're there, you're there. You're 2 weeks in, 1 week off, and you're there. So there's no point in not going to work. So that I was able to manage that a lot better, as well as like managing your money while you're there was a lot easier because you can't get anything brought in for you. You just have what you have, and meals are provided and everything like that. So on that side of it, it probably stretched my career a lot longer just staying out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I knew the end was inevitably coming long before it had.
Right. So you got laid off.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
So yeah, I got laid off, and there was about a 3-month stretch of being on unemployment, and I was waiting for school to start back up again so I could go back into school, because once you're laid off, you still can finish your schooling. So I was planning on going back to school, and it started later in the fall that year. And so I was going to school for I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks out of the 2 months that it was. And at a point, I was having, heavy withdrawals, and I couldn't find the drugs I was looking for while I was there. So I had to drive, because the school is about 2 hours away from where I live. I had to drive back home to pick up the drugs I needed. And so I did, and drove back here, picked up the drugs I needed, and I spent all my money on drugs and had no money to drive the 2 hours back to school. It was a weekday that I came back on, and I just didn't have the money to go back. So I kind of just dropped out from there, and that was it for my school career.
You just didn't go back?
Just didn't go back. Yeah, that was it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have the money to drive back out there, didn't have the desire to even try to go back out there. I just had my drugs, and I was okay with that. But then it posed a problem for me. I got kicked off of EI at that point, and that kind of process really it was the beginning of the end for me on that front. I didn't have money for drugs anymore, so I had to start doing things that more unconventional ways of getting money, selling drugs, and doing whatever I had to get money to get my fix.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so was there a defining moment? Was there something that happened that you just said, powers that be, help me, I can't go anymore?
Yeah, there definitely was. So I got myself into a jam, got myself kicked out of the place I was living, and I ended up back at my parents' house, and I was living there, and I had gotten another job because I wasn't on EI, and I needed a way to pay for drugs somehow. So I had to get another job, and I was working that, got maybe 2 or 3 paychecks, and I went into the city to pick up my fix, and got back home, and I had overdosed that night, and my parents found me on the kitchen floor, and I wasn't conscious, breathing. I had aspirated, which is where you choke on your own vomit, and that was the bottom for me. That was it. It was one of the worst things I could have put my parents through, and it was I was a sick person, and that was the bottom for me. And I woke up in the ambulance with the ambulance driver slapping me, and he was asking me what I took, and I didn't want to tell him. I said, nothing. I didn't take anything. And then he slapped me back awake again. I don't know if it was 10 minutes later, if it was 2 seconds later, and asked me again, and I finally cracked and told him what I took. And then he already obviously knew, because they were giving me Narcan to bring me back. But then from there I was, admitted to the hospital, and my mom and my sister were there for, however long, 10, 20 minutes, because it was 3 a.m, and they left, and I woke back up in the hospital, and I was all alone, and it was just me there. And that's when it really hit me that, I really had a problem, and I really had to do something about it. It wasn't just having fun and partying with my friends anymore.
Right. Party was over.
Yep.
So what was going through your head? Like when you woke up and you were alone, do you remember the thoughts?
Yeah. When I woke up and I was alone, I felt I had this feeling of like, I'm real stupid. There was, this self-pity, the wallowing in what you'd done, and just that feeling of alone. And I had fallen back asleep, and I woke back up, and my brother was standing at the end of my bed, and he he encouraged me and said I should straighten my life back out, and that he loves me and he wants to see me grow and me become, the man that I was supposed to be, and not just throw my life away anymore.
So has your brother been there for you since then? Like, has your family been a support?
Absolutely, they have. They've been nothing but support for me through this whole process. From there, I went to detox, and I had previously burnt the bridge with my brother, so him showing up there that night, it really it set it true to me that it was time. It was over. It was time to straighten out my life, and it was that night that I went to detox and started the program there, and I was in for 7 days, and I got an addictions counselor, and figured out some coping mechanisms, and joined the recovery community that we met in.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what your life looks like today.
My life's a lot different than it used to be, so it's a lot better. I mean, it's a lot more manageable. It's a lot happier. It's peaceful. It's there's a lot more fulfillment in my current living situation in my life as it is, and it's just a lot more desirable to be here. It's free.
Yeah. Comparatively, yeah. Eh? Yeah. So do you are you working with people that are struggling? Like, do you mentor people?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Yeah, anyone with problems, we have a recovery community, and we work together to keep each other off the rocks, and it's that fellowship and that community that keeps us out.
Awesome, man. Well, you're getting some support in the chat here, that's for sure. I have a feeling that you have some family watching.
A couple, yeah.
Awesome. So, do you have any advice for employers in safety sensitive industries? Things that might have gone differently for you had your employer acted differently?
So when you see the red flags, maybe don't turn a blind eye to them. I was, looking for help, but I didn't know how to go about it. And I think at some point somebody would have asked, I probably would have said, I've got a problem. I was too scared to tell a lot of people that I had a problem if they took it seriously. But if someone that I worked with every day maybe asked that question, I might have been able to say yes.
Yeah, it's kind of about awareness, isn't it? This affliction, it seems to have a stigma attached to it, and the thing is they don't want to see it. People don't want to see that,
So they want to sweep it under the rug and kind of not talk about it and veer away from it and hope it goes away on its own, but it doesn't go away on its own.
Yeah. So you have anything you want to say to anyone that might be out there struggling tonight and hearing your words?
Absolutely, yeah. It's never too late to turn your life around, and you're not too far gone. You can always come back from where you are. It's it may feel like bottom, but there's only one way to go from bottom, and that's up. So
holy cow, the chat is exploding. You have got some supporters, my friend. So, does anybody have any questions for Eddie? I think there was one here somewhere. Hang on, I got to scroll back. Trisha, what did she say? Trisha wants to know how many years this went on for, from start to finish.
Start to finish, I was 17 years old when it started and 21 when I sought help.
21.
So 4 years. Yeah.
Awesome stuff here. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked with all the comments you're getting.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I guess that's Eddie's story. If there's no more questions, we are going to let Eddie get back to his new way to live.
Right on. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on the show, Daniel.
Thank you so much for coming, Eddie. And maybe we'll have you back sometime.
Sounds good. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, take care, man.
You too.